No, I cannot give you one of these to exercise. Okay, now, chapter 1, section 5, I think, or section 6. We are going to be talking about multiplying and dividing, okay, real numbers. Okay, multiplying, dividing, positive and negative are all real numbers. Now, rule number 1. If you multiply or divide two two positive numbers. Two positive numbers. Your answer is always what? Always positive. Okay, so your answer is always going to be positive. So let's show an example. If I have 4 times 4, I'm always going to have positive 16. Okay, 4 times 4 is going to be positive 16. Okay, what about 4 divided by 2? Are they both positive? So my answer is going to be 2, which is positive 2, right? Positive 2. Rule number 2. If I have 1 positive and 1 negative, what is my answer going to be?
Negative.
Always going to be negative. Okay, so let's take our examples. If I have negative 4 times 4. Okay, well, we know 4 times 4 is what? 16. And is it going to be positive or negative? And we just said it's going to be negative because we have 1 positive and 1 negative. What about negative 4 divided by 2? Negative. Okay, now what if I switch it around? What if I say 5 times negative 4? Or 4, is it still negative? Even if it's the second number? Yeah, 5 times 4 is 20. Since 1 is negative, I have negative 20. What about 20 divided by negative 4? Since the top bottom number is negative, does it make a difference in your answer? No, it's still going to be negative. 20 divided by 4 is 5. But since one of them is negative, it's going to be negative 5. Okay? And now, rule number 3, if they're both negative. We talked about everything except if they're both negative. If they're both negative, your solution is positive. No matter what. Okay, so go ahead and give me an example, somebody. Can somebody give me an example? All right.
Negative 5 times negative 5 is 20.
Negative 5 times negative 5 equals 25. But it's got to be positive because I have 2 negatives. Okay? So what about negative 30 divided by 6? Negative 30 divided by 6. Well, I'm sorry, negative 30 divided by negative 6 is what I meant to say. Well, what's 30 divided by 6? What's 30 divided by 6? 5. A negative divided by a negative is positive. Okay? So this is going to be positive 5. If I had negative 30 divided by positive 6, it would be negative 5. But since they're both negative, my answer has to be positive. Okay? Questions? Now, suppose that I have more, I'm doing a multiplication problem. Suppose that I have more, okay, I'll call this rule number 4, more than 1. Okay,
It'll still be negative.
and they're all mixed up. Suppose I have -4 times -5 times 3 times -6 times 4 times -2. What if that is my problem? How do I know? Is it going to be positive or negative?
Negative.
How do you know?
Like X.
Taking a guess? Does anybody know the rule?
From my experience.
And then how many negatives and positives do I have?
Oh, whichever there's more of.
No, not whichever there's more of.
Then
Good guess.
Then is it close to that?
Yeah, depending on the last one I multiply and divide by. Or if you count the number of negative numbers. How many negative numbers do you have here?
4.
4. Is it even or odd?
Even.
4 even or odd?
Even.
It's even. If it's even, you're going to have a positive answer.
That's sweet. I never knew that.
You didn't know that?
No.
Is it always
That's kind
like
of the
that?
trick. If it's odd, that always works.
Was it always like that?
Yeah.
And
If it's odd,
it's always negative.
it's always negative.
So back in this area.
Okay, so in this case, I have, this is going to give me positive 20 because of negative times a negative, times 3 times -6 times 4 times -2. 20 times 3 is 60, times -6 times 4 times -2. I'm just doing it one step at a time. 60 times -6 is -360 times 4 times -2. 360 times 4. Well, if you can't do it, I can do that written down really quick. Is it?
Yeah.
Yep. Negative 1,440. But look what we're left with. 2 negatives. When we multiply 2 negatives, what do we get? Positive. So we're going to get positive 2,880. Okay, if we had a negative or an odd number of negatives, then we'd end up with a negative. Okay, is that kind of the trick? What about this? Is that positive or negative? Positive. Why positive? Yeah, this is actually, isn't squared just mean you take the number times itself?
Yeah.
So this is just going to be -4 times -4, and negative times a negative
Equals
is
positive.
positive, so I have positive 16. What about this one? Positive or negative? He says negative. You say negative? Why would this one be negative?
Because it's -4 times 4. Or is it -4 times -4?
Which is it?
If one's negative, the other's positive.
It's negative, but I can't.
Think if you wrote this out. What can I put for this negative sign? One's always imaginary in front of the parentheses. Have you ever thought about that?
1.
This is just like saying -1 times 4 times 4. So if you have one -1, an odd number, 1 is an odd number, am I going to have a or an
A negative.
odd or
Negative.
positive or negative? I'm going to have a negative. So this is going to give me -16. You see the difference? If the negative is on the outside of the parentheses, it's going to give you a negative answer. So on the inside, you're multiplying, you're squaring it by itself, so you have the same number times itself, it's going to be positive. You see the difference? There's a big difference. -4 or -16 and positive 16 are not the same thing. What about this one? Well, first thing first, do I have 2 negatives or 2 positives? 2 negatives. Okay? So I know my answer is going to be what? I know I have a positive answer, but how in the world do you multiply fractions? We did this at the beginning of the year. We marry the tops, marry the bottoms. Remember me saying that all the time? Marry the tops, marry the bottoms. Okay, I know I'm gonna have a positive answer, so I have 10 over 40, which is 1/4. Okay, getting used to multiplying negatives and positives. Marry the tops, marry the bottoms.
What's Mary?
Marry is just my word for multiply. When I talk about fractions.
Very.
Now, we're going to practice these as well. Okay, we're going to practice more of these as well. What if I have the square root of 1,600?
Thank you.
Is it going to be a positive answer or a negative answer?
Well, no, one thing you can't type in your calculator.
So how do I go about solving it?
It's negative.
I have a negative answer, but what is the square root of 1,600?
40.
Do you guys remember how we broke these down? No. Yeah, I did 40.
The tree.
How did you break that down? Yeah, the tree,
Because I'm further.
because you're crazy. Okay, but watch. How can I break 1,600 up?
Square root of 16.
What? Isn't it just 16 times 100? Or whatever you want to think of? Think about this. Isn't 1,600 just 16 times 100? Okay. Do you know what the square root of 16 is?
8.
Square root of 16 is
2.
4. What's the square root of 100?
Well, I got that right.
So this is negative 4
Times 10.
times 10, which gives me negative 40. Okay, try another one. Try another one. What about this one? We've done this one before, see if you can figure it out. Ever seen that one before?
Yeah, I remember seeing it. I tell you 1 over 100, then you find square root of both.
Very good, yes. We remembered. Remember, we're going to take this fraction, and we have 81 over 100. Okay, then we take the square root of the top over the square root of the bottom.
5.
Square root of 81 is
9.
9. The square root of 100 is 10.
Oh, yeah.
So I have negative 9 over 10. Very good.
That's just like 0.9, right?
0.9. Yep, negative 0.9, because of the negative thing. Okay, any questions on those rules? You remember those?
Give us something crazy.
Crazy? You ready for
where
crazy?
you can't even do it.
I can't do it?
Okay, you can do it, but that's gonna be.
Okay, I'll give you one. Give it a try, without using your calculator.
I
was gonna do it.
No, do it without using your calculator.
don't know how to do fractions.
When you divide fractions, what is it the same as? Who can remember back to the beginning of the year? Multiplying by the
Reciprocal.
reciprocal. So take the second number, find the reciprocal, which is 10
Over -9.
over negative 9, right? And I'm multiplying. Now, when we multiply fractions, what do?
Negative 30.
Marry the tops, marry the bottoms. So I have
30.
30 over
8 times 9.
72,
5 over 12.
which is 5. How did you get that?
Calculator.
What'd you divide by?
Well, I wanted to see the answer. I just thought that was gonna be crazy.
If you divide 30 by 6, what do you get? If you divide 72 by 6, what do you get? You divide top and bottom by the same number. Okay? There's 2 things I need to talk about yet. It'll take me about a minute. Okay? If you ever see this symbol, okay? If you ever see this symbol, has anybody ever seen that before?
Yeah,
I seen that last year, but I can't remember what it is.
Does anybody remember what it is?
I kind of remember what it is. Not really.
Oh,
Kind of, not really.
plus and minus. Yeah.
Plus minus. That stands for positive 4 and negative 4. This is actually 2 numbers. This means 4 and negative 4. It stands for both of them. But instead of writing them both out, They just say, okay, well, we're gonna be lazy and we're gonna make plus or minus 4. Okay, plus 4 and then minus 4. Okay, so if I have, let's say, something that looks like this. What is the square root of 144? 12. So is my answer positive or negative 12? It's both, right? It's a positive 12 and negative 12, plus or minus 12. Okay, it's both.
Johnny.
That is all we're going to talk about.
Where are these words before?